I've seen more money get invested and more jobs get created in this field than anyone could have predicted a year and a half ago. And so this idea, oh, the agents can do that. Well, guess what? There needs to be humans that pilot them and that do the cool stuff with them. And the demand comes from us, and thus the supply comes from us too. It's just basic economics, right?
Hey everyone, welcome back to AI with Bry, the show where we're cutting through the noise and helping leaders learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I am Brian Denstead, and you can think of me as your Chief AI Officer, helping you find your path. A lot has happened since the last time Elijah Gutman was on the show. He is now the co-founder at Hartford AI Partners, and he just became the head of digital and AI transformation at Umergence, a FINRA registered broker dealer. He spoke recently at Sovereign 2026 in Toronto during Tech Week, and he attended the AI Agent Conference in New York City, where he's helping a group of international business students use AI to run simulated public investment portfolios. And then he asked the question out loud that nobody really wants to answer. Are you going to trust AI with your real money? So I am pleased to welcome you back to the show. You're one of the most active builders that I know at the intersection of AI and financial services. And every time we talk, you have gone even further and faster than the last time. So welcome back, Elijah. We're really glad to have you here.
Brian, it's always such a pleasure to speak to you about these subjects, right? We had attended the AI4 conference in Las Vegas last week, actually, collectively. And so we were listening to, Godfather of AI and all the people at OpenAI, founding engineers and stuff like that. And the one thing that kept on coming up was somewhere we don't, because you can't possibly know. And that's why the metaphor is so perfect. But they kept saying we've entered the singularity.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that may just to the average person who's listening to that, they're like, oh my God, what are these guys going on about? Have we entered the singularity? And it's really simple. It's at what point do you not even realize that so many changes have occurred that you can't look backwards anymore? And so on a day-to-day level, the average person has asked themselves a question, which is, what would you do without these tools now?
Yeah.
Like it's almost hard to remember what it was like.
Mm-hmm. And it's that my daughter and I were just talking about black holes and event horizons and some cool geeky stuff like that. And it's that question also, like, I do think we're fastly approaching the singularity. I don't know if we're quite there yet or not, but if we reach the point of no return where we can't go backwards, like you can't escape the gravity well that's pulling you towards the singularity in some fashion. But that's really where I want to dive in first. So much has changed, title, events, clients, ideas. So I really want to dig in right there with our Learn segment. What have you been learning lately about AI in the past couple of months? A tool, a concept, something from the conferences you've been to or your work with Umergence? Where is this all going? Lay it on us with some learnings.
Sure. So it's really, when it comes to the advancements that have happened, both personally, professionally, and technologically, it's basically been that, I wouldn't have predicted this 2 or 3 years ago, right? I mean, the theory of the AI era is that it's super easy to learn because you can just stop and ask, right? Like if you don't know something, make me a guide, show me to the right URL, and I can do it myself, which to me would have meant that expertise would have become diffuse. Right. Mm-hmm. But I think that at some point, and I couldn't actually put my finger on exactly on what that point was, maybe when they started using, when Anthropic became more popular and thus it went from ChatGPT to Claude Code, I think that frightened a huge percentage of the average user off. And so when those of us who went, I'm comfortable with the CLI, and then all of a sudden there was a Pareto distribution at that point, right? Something like 15-20% of us went just way further. That allowed me to get way more done. I've literally since the last time we spoke, I founded a startup and have raised $300,000, right? Because I thank you. Yeah. It's cool. It's a verification layer for secondaries. It'll make it so that you basically get a blue check mark for being able to buy and trade pieces of Anthropic and OpenAI and all these other private companies, because it's just right now it's a infrastructure fiasco.
Yeah.
So, but in a nutshell, right, what have I learned? That there's so much opportunity when it comes to financial and regulated services, because all you need to do is be able to demonstrate that the AI systems can do at least as good of a job as a human. And even if it's not quite up to par, building systems where you have human in the loop at the end of a complex process to make sure that you're still meeting regulatory requirements, which is what I've been able to do with Umergence, right? I built a auto CRM and auto follow-up system to be able to live chat with agents while our bankers are doing capital raises. And, how did I do it? I just made it that I literally spent weeks and made sure that everything met compliance requirements, and everyone loves it.
I love it. It's amazing. Yeah, I was honestly really impressed. An idea for you. I had a United flight that got canceled. And so I called, because I'm going to stand in the super long line, or I'm going to call and see which one goes faster. I called, and I was really impressed because I don't feel like it's AI per se, but like they recognized my phone number, confirmed a couple details to validate I'm really who I am, and then he said, "Looks like you missed your flight was canceled. I've texted you." They didn't even ask. They said, like, "I've texted you a link. Click on it. I'll wait." And I click on the link and it says, "Oh, great. I see you've got the link open. Here are the available flight options that we could rebook you on. Pick whichever one and I'll tell you." So it was a really interesting, amazing pairing between the phone and the web app that I was using on my phone to help guide me through this customer service angle which is a very frustrating, upsetting thing, right? With obviously trying to avoid me getting to a human because they can help me through this process. I had a complicated situation, still needed to wait and talk to the human, which was a 60-minute wait. But I just love the concept of pairing the phone, like you were just saying in your example. So I just think there's untapped experiences that we haven't really thought about that are all within our grasp with a few hours of hanging out with Claude Code.
Yeah, I mean, it's fascinating, right? Like, one of the patents that we filed for the startup is quite literally exactly that. It's agentic channeling. So
Yeah.
the ability, so like my design philosophy in the world we live in is that if you have to log into it, you've already failed.
Yeah,
Right. Like,
that's true.
people don't want to log into it. They would
Yeah.
rather keep using the thing from 2007 that's
Mhm.
clunky and old, as long as it's not one more thing. Right.
Yeah.
Just think
Yeah.
about it. Like 80, 85, 90% of people are still using the same software. Maybe it's updated since then. So what's
Mhm.
the design philosophy? It's agentic channeling. So you can talk to your dashboard, whatever the software is, through text, WhatsApp, email.
Mhm. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
So you don't ever have to log into it.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, any other quick learnings you have for us? Like, what is some of the things that people that are watching this show should lean in on a little bit and experiment with and try? You and I are on this bleeding edge, so I hope everybody by now is using like Whisper Flow and Claude Code or something. But like, are you leaning in heavily on Claude Design? Are there some other agentic frameworks or something? Any tips for our users that want to go deeper with us?
So I obviously encourage everyone to use both Obsidian as well as the Andre Karpathy's Second Brain framework. These are things that you can literally just punch in the URL and talk to whatever preferred AI tool you have, and it'll walk you through setting it up. If you give it access to your computer, it can quite literally click around and set it up for you. It's basically, they're just methods to have visualizations for your memory and to make it so that your instance never loses context because it's constantly auto updating. But as far as the one thing, while we're still in just the learning segment, the students that actually did end up using that AI to do their private investments, or to do their public investments, my apologies, they actually ended up doing a really good job. But the one thing they couldn't answer was, would they have done the same thing if it was their own money and not the school's money, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I, just on a personal level, have done that. And I've done quite well. What I would encourage people, this is not a financial advice, I am not a registered representative, is that to put a small percentage and see how you do over a few weeks. Just follow the suggestions and then use Robinhood and just make the investment, right?
Yeah.
Like it's really, it is as good as some of the top RIA advisors now.
I agree completely with that. It's all about you hit it's such a sharp point you hit on. Experiment. You know, that's the real key of this is like we almost have to go back and pretend we're kids again and just play with it, break it, fail. You know, my daughter's babbling through language and I keep reinforcing the words so she says them correctly. You know what I mean? And we take that for granted because it's so cute when they're so small. But that's kind of where we're at. We're at this age of like babbling through AI, figuring out what works and what doesn't work. So um it's really, really amazing. So that's the strong gap. So I think our people are going to enjoy listening to that. Diving into the leverage section though, um I'm curious, like start this section off on leverage the right way because you're building in multiple directions simultaneously. And I am trying to do the same thing. Like your Hartford AI partner serving businesses that can't afford to get AI wrong, your Umergence, where you're architecting AI driven due diligence and infrastructure for these private markets. What does that leverage look like day to day? And how do you, the age old wisdom is focus on one thing and do it and crush it and then do the next one. You and I are juggling multiple things. How do you divide and conquer your stream of consciousness? And how are you leveraging in all of these worlds right now?
No, it's actually such a great question. Right? Like we've collapsed the amount of time that it takes to build an experiment that we're constantly context switching now. I mean,
Hmm.
right before we started recording, we were like, what were we even going to be talking about? Right?
That's
Because
right.
like we're
Yes.
just bouncing around between all these meetings now, right? And it's
Hmm.
really quite amusing. The way that I handle it is actually through that second brain methodology. So that as I get interesting user behavior feedback, like for instance, we had designed a private fintech platform for due diligence, and we were spending all this time and energy and money with our engineers, and we at some point we got to the end and we abandoned it and said, you know what? Fact is that this isn't going to be better than Claude or some of the other tools out there. So let's just use agent orchestration tools and string it all together.
Mm.
And we've gotten great benefit out of that. But then of course it's still good old fashioned like software development, right? You spend time building, you listen to what people have to say, you observe fascinating thing. Like quick anecdote, I built a series that's actually an agent swarm that does research and due diligence on deals. Is this company worth raising for, or any of their members of their board serial entrepreneurs, and thus makes it easier for them to either sell their companies or raise money. And people were talking to the agents after they had done the research as if they were still listening.
Mm.
Built the system that way, right? And so I had to set up Python scripts that then auto scanned email inboxes for keywords that then woke the agents back up again so that they could read the responses that then kept the deal moving forward as more and more diligence questions were getting answered. Right? And so that was really interesting. But just to circle back, the real answer is that it's really tough to juggle it all, right? Like I get, I really do, funnily enough, wish that we were still in that world where you could just pursue that one thing and do it excellently. There's a unilateral focus and a kind of a meaning that comes from that. But when you can run multiple conversations on Claude Code while you're responding to emails, and they're all building, and you can test the systems in a day instead of in weeks. I mean, it's just like there's some sense that you're losing out by not following it all. And so I do it, and I get mental fatigue, and I'd be lying if I said that it was easy, but it's worth the price. I don't know how else to answer that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The question that pops in my head, because it sounds like we're both doing the similar thing, is you have all those windows going and And then, like the podcast, right? Like you and I are not checking our terminal windows while we're recording this to a degree. Um, so there's certain moments where you have to be present and focus, and they just have to wait. But my frustrating piece in this whole thing of like trying to maximize the leverage of AI is really around like, great, when unfortunately two or three of my terminal windows get to an inflection point where they need me to do the work. I need you to log into Google Cloud and set up this little thing. I need you to validate that what I built for the past 5 hours is strong and exactly what you had envisioned. And those are those things. It's just like, okay, I've got all these things in going, but now, okay, now I literally have to do that hour's worth of work to keep that one moving forward. And it's difficult when they all batch up at the same time. You can't control when they're going to do that. But I know you've been in that situation as well. And it's just like you tell the family, 1 more minute, and you blink and it's 2 a.m. So is there this sense of like, this balance between like leveraging it, but then also knowing like we've got to have some sort of structure towards balancing, being a human and living with our pursuit of all the ripe opportunities that you and I just see the trees getting lower and lower and us being able to reach for them so much
You're
easier.
riper too.
Yeah, ripe. Yeah, they're so easy. I mean, my example is like I built a language learning app for me to learn Romanian, and I built it in like 3 hours. It was perfect for me. And I'm like, then I said, okay, cool. Well, let's just launch it on the App Store. It got to the point where I needed to upload it to the App Store, and then I lost 10 hours of my life negotiating with Apple to get me into the store the right way. So it took 3 hours to build it, and it still took 10 hours to deploy it to the App Store, which was a frustrating thing. I think I can do the next one in half that time, but it was just a really interesting thing that there's still these human walls that we're going to hit.
Totally. No, it's
So
100% true, especially because my niche that I found myself in is building in highly regulated spaces, right?
mhm.
And so the way that works is really what is the furthest that you can go before you'd be crossing over compliance or legal boundaries, right? And I know that like now it's a common parlance, but like it's human in the loop systems. It's human in the loop systems. What data does it have access to? What PII or NPI redactions need to occur, right? What guardrails need to be built in? I know that I spent one of the systems that I had designed, which is just my what I've been working on is I'm not doing any custom engineering. I'm doing really just AI agent orchestration, is making agents talk to multiple systems that then wake up and do that and come back on. And one of the systems that I built took maybe like 5 or 6 hours to build, but took 3 days to test because I needed to know that whatever prompt injecting that I tried to do wouldn't break it, right? Because it was a compliance issue.
Yeah.
If it's talking to this system, well, what if someone emails that system and tries to scoop stuff out of our Airtables or out of our CRM? Does it work? And I just had to make it deterministic, but it does work.
Yeah, it's so true because I see this development life cycle in the middle that used to take months or years shrunk down to hours and days. But I think the two bottlenecks are in the product requirements. Like you and I are very fortunate because we have the product mindset in our head, so we know what we want to build and we can articulate that quickly and efficiently. But a lot of companies I see are still struggling with like, how do I get my idea onto paper or into a document to give to Claude to build it in that fashion? And then the second roadblock I really see is in the deployment. Like, how do we QA it, deploy it, market it? Those are the real struggles that still are all dependent on the human piece, for sure. I'm sure you're seeing that at both Umergence
more so than
and
I've never done. I have all these random titles, but really what I am is a product engineer.
yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So it's really interesting to see that take shape on that front. I'm curious, are you dabbling at all with any of these agent payment frameworks? Like Cloudflare rolled out their if you want to scrape my website, you got to pay to get it kind of concept. Like we have to figure out how to unlock the economy, right? Because the economy now has unlimited uh, supply of workers, but we still are dependent on the humans to spend the money. So we have to get the agents to have their own wallet in some fashion, right? And then we can continue with our capitalistic society. I don't know.
Found so the reason why I'm definitely not one of these AI doomers is, first off, it's two things. One, you look at Sam Altman and Dario, I always get his name wrong, the CEO of Anthropic, and I go, God, these guys are the most ingenious salesmen, right? Just the ability to think that people are now buying all of their products because they think that they're, they've got 5 or 10 years before they're part of the permanent underclass. And it's like, you guys are fine, right? Like we've seen, we co-own a software development firm, or the founder of Umergence does, right? They get more requests than they ever have before.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
Because the mind has just been opened to all the possibilities, right? And I've seen, because we're in the startup world as well, I've seen more money get invested and more jobs get created in this field than anyone could have predicted a year and a half ago. And so this idea, the agents can do that. Well, guess what? There needs to be humans that pilot them and that do the cool stuff with them. And the demand comes from us, and thus the supply comes from us too. It's just basic economics, right?
Yeah. I love it. I think that's spot on. I mean, I have to go back and look at how many times I've said this on every episode, but I do think it's ushering in this new Renaissance era of ideas and stuff. So it's really, really amazing. So last segment is the leadership one, and these are the one. This is where I'm really excited to speak with you, because you're building multiple things simultaneously. You're speaking at international conferences. You're working with the students. I think on our previous episode, you described someone whose only advantage over the next generation is a series of failures and resilience to get back up. And that's a really strong leadership philosophy. So what beliefs do you have about the future of AI and financial services and people in the industry, the bankers, the compliance officers? What are they pushing back on right now? And how do we help them see the future here?
So I think that there's no reason for them to be as fearful as we just said, for them to be concerned about it, right? I jokingly tell people all the time, now I work in finance and tech, I went to school for political science, right? I am completely self-taught, and that is everything, from my background in product management, business analytics, to now in AI and finance and fintech, right? So, and how did I do that? Before the AI era, it was just, YouTube University, right? And now it's like, God, this is the most, I tell the students this when I work with them. This is a new renaissance to be a student. You have the most infinite access to a brilliant, it's a PhD quality mind at your behest at any moment of the day, right? And especially what they get subsidized tokens. I mean, people who are, we have to pay enterprise costs for a lot of my clients, but people who are paying $200 a month, I mean, my God, you're getting way more than $200 a month of value, right? And so for them, they just need to build new things, start a business, right? Use it for their classes and not in a way to cheat through their classes. I mean, in a way to truly learn what it is that's going to benefit their career. There was a great study that showed how you would imagine that in most technologies, the value accrues at the very top percent quartile, right? Where most, a few major corporations are getting most of the value. AI has been the exact opposite, funny enough, right? Where most of the value is actually accruing at the bottom because it's completely dropped the barriers to entrepreneurship, to the writing a business plan, to doing mass outreach to venture capital firms and family offices for potential investment. Build something, you have a cool idea, right? You have some people you want to work with. Send out some emails for me so I can get some meetings,
I
right?
love it. Yeah. It's very, very true. I mean, how do you look at the clients and collaborators that you're bringing into some of your organizations that's hard to see? Like I've got my little audit tool, diligence tool for things I do. You've got yours built. How do you uh try to leverage AI or lean in on the pitch decks or the intake forms to find the things that are hard to see or doesn't show up in those things, that this company is like really going to lean in and embrace the AI, or where they're trying to head.
So that's really interesting. So the way that it's funny, I had this exact interaction happen to me a few weeks ago, right? I built these auto due diligence agent swarms, and they were like, "Well, okay, well, how are you assessing the opportunities and the deals that are coming in?" Guys, that's the template. That's you. That's your human experience
Hmm.
that has to create where it's going, how it's searching, what metrics. I mean, you could ask, five different great investors in the VC or later stage family office world and ask, well, what company was worth working with and why? In the end, it has to go with your thesis, right? I can then build a template and have the agents follow that thesis. I could let
Hmm.
them come up with it on their own, but what they're going to do is, I mean, their AI is innately derivative because it's based off of the sum total of our human writings, and now so more our transcripts and kind of flow of thought because of tools like Otter and Granola. So now AI is
Hmm.
now getting a lot more trained on actual human vernacular, which is interesting to see how that's improved the quality of it. Um, and in the end, they get to decide, right? You can leave it up to that, but it's going to copy it from someone else. Like, what would you do? What has worked for you in your career and the people who you helped exit the most companies for the most value, and just give me that, download it for me, and I will have them follow that pattern.
Yeah, it's true, because I think like people are not really people that understand the power of it understand that the models are going to provide the median average answer. You know what I mean? Like, what do you want for dinner tonight? Chicken, right? Like, it's just that's the default answer that it's going to come to on that bell curve. I think you and I are playing in this space. We're on the edges of the curve, right? So, like, we have got to really figure out how do we leverage the median to assess the edges, or some sort like that. Like, you and I can interpret and read the tea leaves on these edges way better than the AI can. And how do we help shape the system? Yeah, you passed the basic muster, but I got the good feeling about these things, or I think this is an idea that's going to blow up. But you ask AI if that's going to blow up, and it's going to say, "I don't know. I don't think so," because it's not that median answer. Have you seen some examples of that, or how do you play into that? Because that's where we're going to make the money, helping take these edge cases and rise them to be a medium answer, right?
Sure. So it's all bringing in context and experience, right?
Mm, yeah.
I found that you can propose a very difficult situation to AI to help you think through, when it might be like vendor selection or investment opportunity, or could even be a difficult personal situation. I've seen, like, I have the enterprise thing for my clients now. And so guess what? When I do a compliance API pull, I see what you say,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
And the ones that are getting the much higher quality answers are the ones that are feeding in their previous experience, the totality of a situation, as much possible quantitative data as possible, and then provide. And then what's the one thing that it doesn't have? It doesn't have the tactile experience in the real world. Be like, here's three vendors, but I'm thinking about going with this guy because I feel like he's going to work harder, and here's why. What do you think? And then the quality of your answer,
Hmm.
boom,
Yeah.
increases, tenfold.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so true. All these little tricks on how to do it. I've written some of the best reports and diligence of my career in the past year, I would say, with me and my train of thought, being able to get the stuff that I normally just wouldn't have time to do, but I've always wanted to do, and it just flows out. And it I don't know. I feel like I'm delivering $1 million diligence reports now for the same price I have been charging, um, because I just have this team of people behind me that, like you said, is $200 a month. So um, I know that you will be back on the show sometime. I'm thinking potentially you'll hop back in for our holiday year in review episode towards the end of the year. So between now and then, hit us with some leadership like predictions for what are some things that are going to develop and pop and happen. We're going to have uh Codex 7.5 by the end of the year, and Anthropic's going to finally release their secret master AGI. Like, where are some of your predictions going to
So
fall?
I do not think that we're at AGI yet. In fact, I'm a skeptic that the technology as it stands will get us to AGI. I think, and it also, now to be super fair, that depends on how we define AGI. I would argue that we're already there in so much as that it is artificial, it has generalized intelligence,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, like, you were already kind of there.
Yeah.
But as far as my predictions, but there's a big difference between that and artificial super intelligence. I don't know. That's its own thing. God theory.
Separate podcast for that. Yeah.
Yeah, we could go down the whole rabbit hole. But some tactile predictions. The cost of tokens, I think, is going to be dramatically reduced in the next year or two.
Has to be.
I met some ingenious Indian and Israeli and Brazilian founders who have managed to compact entire 32 to 56 billion parameter models into single chips.
Wow.
Right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so now they've gotten ones. There's a company called Azul. That I might be getting the name wrong. I apologize on that. I'll get that to you in the notes. But that is able to get answers within 32 milliseconds of a prompt. Yeah. Wow. Right. And so, and like anything, it's like, oh, well, they can only do that with a 56 billion parameter model. And it's like, yeah, for now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Like, to my understanding, it's a energy issue more than anything else. And so if we're able to have the energy that's needed, and as far as the shrinking technology that's necessary, you string together enough of them, and you can do that with up to, one of these trillion parameter models. And then you could store them locally, and you could be getting, fractional cost. We're talking, like a penny on the dollar of today's API calls to OpenAI or Anthropic for the same quality of intelligence that we're getting from Fable. And it's just a matter of time.
I agree with you. I think you're going to see a new wave of computers coming out with more chips on them. You're going to see the AI get way more specialized, like you were saying, because that 32 milliseconds is really needed for real time. Like you and I talk to the AI right now, and there's that latency. There's that 2 to 7 second latency that just frustrates us when you and I are having a conversation. There's nothing, right? So, yeah, I think you're spot on with some of those. So let's see how they come true.
We'll see. We'll touch base then.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that you are a really strong guide in this AI space, not just a vendor. So I hope that people can reach out to you and pick your brain on some of these things. I think every AI implementation team needs to really figure out that pattern, and I think you're doing the really hard work of holding that standard up to a very demanding environment. So thank you for being here, Elijah. It's great to see you again. How do people find Hartford AI Partners and Umergence and reach out and chat with you?
HartfordAIPartners.com, Umergence.com. So that's like emergence with a U. And it's Elijah Gutman, and I'm right on LinkedIn. You can schedule an appointment with me there. And any of those channels, you'll be able to find me or my contact information.
Perfect. We are going to make sure all those show notes are down below. So click on that, check those out, and you can click straight through to everybody out there. If you're leading financial services, you're an insurance company or any regulated space there, trying to figure out where AI is actually fitting in, share this episode. It's this kind of conversation that your leadership team needs to have you make the avoidance of that wrong call, I think. So follow the podcast, leave us a review, and check out all the ways to connect with Elijah in the show notes down below. Again, I'm Brian Denstead. You have been listening to AI with Bry. And remember, the future doesn't wait. So learn, leverage, and lead. And we'll see you next week.